Hi, Liesl. Thanks for joining us this morning. And I know you've got a story that you want to share with us, so I'll let you tell your story.
Sure thing, Vanita. Okay. I'm just here to talk about mental health and how it's something that you should never be embarrassed about, because I've gone through this myself and I suffered for a very, very long time because I was too embarrassed to say anything to my friends or to my family and just to let them know what I was going through. So I was hoping by sharing my story and just to letting them know what actually helped me, people might be willing to go out and get help for themselves or just to have a talk to their friends and say, hey, I'm struggling a bit.
So how was it like as a child?
As a child, I would say literally I had no self-esteem, no confidence. We moved from Sydney and we moved up to the far north coast of New South Wales, and we lived in a little village of 200 people. We were the horrible people who moved up from Sydney, who took over the general store and changed things.
So people treated you differently?
Yes, they did. We got treated differently.
And did that go on for a while?
It went on for the entire time that we lived there.
How old were you at this point?
I was 5.
And you felt that discomfort from people even at that age?
Yeah, I just felt like I was never accepted, that no one wanted to be my friend, that I was always seen as the odd one out. I was always picked last on sporting teams. And,
Yes.
when you only have 80 kids at your primary school...
Yeah, you want to be picked at least somewhere middle of the pack.
Yeah, somewhere middle of the pack, yeah. There was only once that I got picked first, and that was by a friend who was new to the school, and I almost cried in joy and happiness because I couldn't believe it. But it only happened ever once.
And how long did you live in this village for?
For 8 years.
Did it ever improve?
No.
So 8 years you lived that way, feeling that you were an outsider.
Outsider, yeah. And coming from my experience now, looking back, a lot of it was just my perception. It was truly my perception because I was really close friends with the most popular girl in the school.
Yes.
And we would spend lots of afternoons together, but I could never see it that way.
So you felt excluded.
Even though I wasn't.
Even though you... You were in the elite group. You were the it girl.
Yeah, but I couldn't see it. I really couldn't see it. I had no confidence. I was always thinking, how can I change myself so people will like me? My parents, as good-natured as they were, and this was the 70s and early 80s, so you don't know any better, and you just put on a face to show that it doesn't matter. Put on a mask so it show you don't think. It's just the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. It's like almost saying to someone who's
you're not good enough.
Yeah,
it's saying you're not good enough as you
someone else.
Yeah, be someone else. And that's what I was always searching for. And so when I got into year 7 and my parents decided to move from our little village and we moved down to Taree, it was okay for the first 2 years, year 7 and year 8. I was in, there's some really popular groups, and I went away for summer holidays and I came back into year 9 and all of a sudden I was the worst thing in the world. I had all the girls from year 9, 10 and 11 bully me.
Okay. And what form of bullying did that? Just excluding you?
Excluding me, verbal abuse. They would get my school bag and write slut and bitch and everything all over my school things. Yeah, verbally abused. Thank Christ we didn't have the internet back then. Forget it was.
So did you tell anybody? Did you tell
I
anyone?
just told my parents. Yep. And again, just put on a face. Don't let it.
No.
Yeah. So
did anyone at school
say
it?
Oh yeah.
Teachers.
No. Well, teachers, they didn't have the kind of bullying awareness and programs that they have nowadays. If in my thought, it wouldn't have mattered. Just wouldn't have mattered. But I was getting tremendously bullied. And it is so bad that at the end of year 10, like in my tradition for my high school, the year 12s put on a concert. Some girls of the group put on a concert. There was all these girls talking around in a group, and they were saying, they were talking about guys alike, and one girl would go, I got with him, I got with him, I got with him. Oh yeah, I got with him as well. And in the end, they just said, shut up, Liesl. And I had 1,100 people just turn around and look at me, and I was mortified because I'd hardly had any boyfriends whatsoever. And I was just going, are you kidding me?
And how did that make you
Oh,
feel?
I was devastated. I was so mortified.
But you turned up to school every day, though.
Yeah, you had to. You just had to turn up to school. I was a little goody two-shoes as well.
You followed the
I followed the
line,
rules. Yeah. Well, I followed the rules. There was no other way. But for me, in my mind,
How do you feel about yourself when you were going through that?
I just wanted to run away. I think that's why I put my head into fantasy novels, because it was an escape. And I really just wanted to escape my life. And what I would picture is scenarios in my head that could just escape, could run away. You know, this other life, this better life. You know, this life where I was wanted or the star or everything else.
When did you get help?
When did I get help? Well, this leads to another thought, kind of another story. There was a moment in time, and this was, I can't remember if it was 93 or 94, but I was actually living with two friends from high school in Sydney. We're living in Petersham. And I just remember it so clearly. We were all in their lounge room, and I was just thinking to myself, I wish you can ask your friends for recommendation for a good psychiatrist. Like, you could ask a recommendation for a good hairdresser or a good car mechanic. But I was still way too embarrassed to just let them...
And you should be able to without anyone batting an eyelid, really.
Exactly. But for me, there was still that shame. I felt like it was still taboo to talk about problems.
How old were you at this point?
I would have been probably 22 or 23.
And you still hadn't feel
No,
enough all through the years?
No. And it was kind of like I was still going through my head all this negative talk, negative all the time, just you're useless, you're terrible, all through the head. I didn't really do anything. In 96, I was flatting with a girl over from Maroubra, and she had just done like a weekend course in kinesiology, or she was starting to do kinesiology, and she'd go, oh, can I practice on you? So, yeah, I'll be your guinea pig. And then she'd do this weird thing with my arm, and she'd hold some points on my head, and then things would change. And then she'd go, and I was saying, oh, I've got a really sore shoulder. And she's gone, okay, well, your sore shoulder relates to the fact that you're really angry with your boyfriend. And I'm just going,
how come?
It was like, okay, sure, because I was really angry with him. Okay, that's weird. And moved flats, kind of lost contact with her. And so when I was starting to really get stressed when I was working a company, and I was just thought, okay, well, I'll give this kinesiology thing a try. And I sort of did 2 sessions, and it was like, and then another 2 years later, it was like, I need it again. So I think I did about 4 sessions. And then it was like, oh, I can't afford it. I was working in advertising 2000 to 2003. The pressure was just getting to me. I would get in at 6 a.m. in the morning to work. I wouldn't leave until about 7 o'clock at night. I had a boss who was micromanaging me, and she was nitpick everything. I just went from really high to 0 self-esteem in 3 months. It just reminded me that I had no self-esteem or confidence.
Yeah. You didn't have any, you hadn't built any defenses, you hadn't built your confidence.
Yeah, all I needed someone was to burst that little bubble that I had pretended that I had, and it was just gone again. Quit there to go to another advertising agency thinking it'd be different. Another advertising agency.
And it wasn't?
No, of course it wasn't. But it was like, at that stage I said to myself, okay, I don't care what it is. I'm going to make myself a promise that I'm going to do the kinesiology no matter what it costs until I get rid of all my baggage. So that was 2003. I still get kinesiology today, so that's like 12 years later. And then it's around about 2010. Oh, I mean, I wanted to do it from 2007, study it, because I wanted to be able to help other people. I call it like a gift, but I still didn't have the confidence to do it. And it's kind of 2010, it was like, I'm on these confidence fluorescent drops. I got an email from the college that I've been stalking for the last 3 years, and it's like open night. I was like, I'm going to go.
It took you 3 years to get to do the course.
It took me 3 years to get myself confidence levels to the course, and then it took me 3 years to actually do the course.
You did it.
I did it, yeah. And it's so funny because at my graduation, one of the principals of the college, I was the first one to get my diploma, and he goes, when Liesl first started, I thought there was no way that this girl's going to make it through. It's just like...
Well, lucky you didn't say that at the start.
I know. I'm just looking at him going, what on earth would you have said? And he said, and I asked him about it later, and he said, because you had no confidence.
Okay. And that was so visible to
him. For him. I thought I was brimming with confidence at that stage. And it was just like, I don't think he understood how determined I was. So even through all my depression that I had, and I'd probably had mild depression, there was an underlying determination that I've got to get through, and I'm
Yes.
going to get through.
And you did. Do you wish you had been able to get some form of help earlier on?
God, yes. Because back in theirs, it was only Americans who got therapy.
Yes, I know.
It
It's-
was, it was
yeah,
looked
yeah.
as like a something namby-pamby,
Yep.
self-centered Americans got. And it was
Yeah.
almost like, God, you need to go to therapy?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Well, obviously something.
But it's funny because I had my husband said this to me once, and I thought it's a really nice way of looking at it. You go to therapy not because something's wrong with you, but because you want to be the best you can be.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
and if we can just change the mindset, I always thought if someone said to me, you need to go and get therapy, that they thought less of me. But
Yeah.
actually, if it's just the connotation that therapy is, the bad name that therapy's got.
Yeah.
If you think, got this lifetime to do real good, why don't I be at my best? And whatever help I can get, whatever that is, legal help.
Yeah.
Therapy, it's medication, it's natural therapies,
Yep.
whatever it is, go get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Liesl.
That's okay.